Oh, hi, I see you now. How's it going, everybody? This is Mystery Man and Mrs. Simpson, ready for another week of science, and we're here to do a dissection of a sheep eye. And you can take a look at it right there. And just so you get the full effect, there's both of them looking right back at you. We're just gonna do one, and we'll show you all the inner workings of the eye. All right, so a couple things before we start. We can see a couple of really cool things. We're not just gonna hack and get into this. So here's what it looks like on the outside. It doesn't look like that round shape that you typically see in a picture or anything like that. All you see is this when you're looking at an eyeball. You see the front part. You'll see the black pupil, which you have here, and there's actually an iris, which you really can't see because it's all clouded over and it's a very dark brown color. But here you can see the rest of it. You can see the outside layer here, the cornea and the sclera. But what's really neat is if we go behind the eye. So if we took out the skin and the bone, you can see all this fat that kind of protects it. There's some muscle connections that are around here too that we can see right here, which allows it to move. But also on the very back is where all the magic happens. All this gunk, as soon as we pull that all away, we can feel this really hard stem right here. It's a really hard, stocky type thing, almost like a piece of celery. And that is the optic nerve. And this optic nerve connects to a brain. And so right in here is where that light message that's converted now to a digital message, an electrical message, I guess is the best way of saying it, is sent to the brain. But I'll show you what it's like on the inside of the eye. So here we go. Now this is a really interesting thing. When you're doing a cutting of the eye, you don't just want to start cutting right across the eyeball. It's almost like you literally are doing surgery for this. You almost want to cut not on the pupil or even close to the pupil, but you also don't want to cut into the fat because that's not going to go anywhere. So we want to cut right between the back fat layers of the eye and the pupil. And this is going to be very interesting because I don't want to do too much. I'm just going to give it a little bit of a nick. Get it? Nick? Just going to give it a little bit of a nick just so I can get in there. And I'm going to try scissors. And if scissors don't work, I'll use scalpel, but scissors are the preferred tool for cutting through the eye. And all I'm going to do is cut around. You can see Mrs. Simpson on the ground. You can see all that vitreous humor, that liquid that gives the eyeball its shape, just gooing out of there, and you have that too. Here's an interesting fact. If you were stuck in a desert somewhere and you had no water and you were just walking through the deserts like you see on those old movies and cartoons and all that, you will go blind after 4 days because your eye has all that good water in it and the body steals it from there. And if you lose that water, and if your eye loses its shape, you can't just put water back in there. You are going to stay permanently blind. All right, here we go.
Well, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Gooey goodness.
My gosh, that is so cool.
Check it out, everybody. And then we'll take a look at some stuff further there. So here we can see the gooey inside of the eye and the front of the eye. We're going to focus on the front of the eye. Now, you can see, and you see all that the black stuff. I'll talk about that in a bit. And it's safe, it's fine. You can still see the pupil. You can see where light comes in through the eye. And that front cornea is all thick and glossied over because it's full of a liquid as well, an aqueous humor, a thicker kind of a thinner gel, I should say, that helps refract light. But we're gonna just take out a few things here. I'm going to take my probe and put it underneath between this pupil, this iris, I should say, and the front of the eye. And I'm just going to just scrape it out. I don't want to rip it too hard, but I know I'm going to be aware of time. All right, I'm going to scrape away. Here we go. There we go. And there we can see the iris, the colored part of the eye. Now, for the sheep, it's brown. For us, it's brown or green or blue or hazel or whatever, or even multicolored. And so there we go. Now you can see the cornea, or sorry, the iris.
Iris, yeah.
And this is what constricts and dilates to allow more or less light in. Attached to some muscles here, some ciliary muscles around the eye. And let's just take a quick look at the front. There is the actual pupil. You always see on those cartoons how, you know, like Bugs Bunny would go into the giant's head and he would be poking out the eyes, if you've ever seen Bugs Bunny. And this is what he's looking through there. And there is the cornea. All right, so cornea, iris, there's your pupil. Now let's get...
Well, that's the space for the pupil, right?
Right, that's right, yeah. Now, this is a very gooey, jelly substance here. Hard to get this with a probe, but we can see the gel. Oh. That is the vitreous humor. That's the liquid that gives the eye its shape. And I'm just gonna kind of get that out. I'm gonna show you something in a bit. I'll leave that actually face down for now. And there we can see where the iris was attached. We can see the vitreous humor around here, and here we can see the hardened lens. Now this is usually softer because it's meant to squish and thicken and squish and thicken to focus light onto the back of the retina. Really important you remember that, on the back of the retina. And it's quite cloudy. I'm just gonna try to separate it from here. It feels like I'm popping like bubble wrap. And there we can see the lens. It's very cloudy because it's absorbed some chemical, but it's usually fairly clear, which you want it to be, so you can have light passing through there without being changing direction on you. Okay, listen to this.
Super.
All right, now we get to the back of the eye. So light has gone through the hole here, through the cornea, through the pupil, which is just in the iris, through the lens, through the vitreous humor, and then it gets to the back, and here's where it's really interesting. A sheep eye is different than a human eye. It's got this really iridescent back. This is actually called a tapetum. It's in other mammals, not in humans, but this is really the retina, the back of the eye. And inside the back of the eye are specialized cells called photoreceptors. They're called rods and cones. There's two kinds of them. Cones do some really cool things with color. They help identify color, the millions of colors that we have in the world. And the rods help detect light. So they help interpret color, they help interpret light, and send that to the optic nerve. So let me just scrape away this tapetum, this retina, and it has a black gunky sensation to it. Just gonna scrape it away as best I can.
This is like a perfect specimen of an eye.
This is a really good one. And sorry, Mr. Sheep, but we don't need that anymore. There we go. And it was really attached to one point. And Mrs. Simpson, you have to zoom in here a little bit.
I'm gonna see what I can do.
Let me just see if I can feel it first of all. There we go, oh, right there. Right, just double check, because all the gunk here. Sorry, everybody.
Oh, we want a good look at that.
It's not a lot in here. There we go. Okay, right there. Right there, that kind of depression there.
Yep.
That is the start of the optic
There it is.
which is right there. And so this is actually kind of your blind spot, because we said that the retina kind of covers the whole back of the eye. It's got all those specialized cells. There are not a lot of rods and cones there on the optic nerve because it's the optic nerve. They're all around it. They funnel the message to the optic nerve. So this is actually your blind spot. So there's not a lot of those receptors. So sometimes if you're looking around, if you try this with your finger, if you put it close to your face and turn or just kind of focus other places, you'll actually lose sight of certain things because you have that blind spot. And that's right there. It's also called the fovea centralis, if I recall correctly. So there we go. So that is the start of the optic nerve. And this converts the light and color images that we have, converts it to an electrical image that goes to your brain. And then your brain interprets it. And yes, there is speculation about it being upside down in your mind, but we're not going to get to that. That's another issue for another time. So there we go. I see we had a good time. You've all been great pupils. And yes, those are really corny jokes. Everybody take care. Enjoy today's lesson. See you next week.
Bye, grade 8s.